Succeed. Succeed means to accomplish what is attempted, to come next, or to follow. Succeed means to accomplish what is attempted, to come next, or to follow. To succeed. We hear a lot about, succeeding and what success, is. And I want to make this video today just to really kind of delve into that a little bit. People, here's what's interesting about succeeding. We all have been indoctrinated into an ideology that you've only succeeded if it looks just like this or looks just like that. When the reality of it is when you set a trajectory, set a goal, set a focus, set something to attempt to do something, and you actually get to, you attempt it and you accomplish it. Well, that's success. That's success. Now, did you accomplish the ultimate goal? Well, in life, we got a long life. If God permitting, we have a long life to you're constantly striving toward the goal. You never attain it, to the end of life, and then that was the life that you lived, But success is not the same for everybody, and this is the issue that we have right now. You want to convey what you think success should be on what you see somebody else doing, when in fact, and I've had to learn this, and I'm still learning this myself over the past few years, several years, that what I feel is not successful, has actually been successful and it's being successful. And, when, we tend to don't believe something's successful until we get validation from somebody else. Well, we don't realize that a lot of times, but that's just how we're kind of set up, especially in this culture. But, several years ago, someone said, I see you succeeding to me. And I was like, me? I'm like a deer in the headlight, me succeeding, and I had to step back and look. I'm like, oh, they see the progress that I'm making. They see me, attempt something and I accomplish it and I accomplish it. And they see me attempt other things and that, and they don't work. But they said I'm successful, and I had to step back and, give God the glory. And I am moving, sure, have I hit the level, the goal, the thing that I started striving for? No, but here's the reality. I've had a number of successes after successes after successes. I've attempted this, it worked. I attempted this, it worked. Now, did it bear the wealth and the riches? No, it didn't. But each individual thing, and when I look back at what the trajectory that God's had me on for the past several years, I can see a number of successes that have led me even to this point now where it's a struggle. It's a big struggle. I'm not going to sit here and say everything's great because hey, I'm in it with you. I'm not far from exempt. But I have a pathway. I have a through line of successes that have led me to this place, and I'm like, okay, and here's what happens, and I can honestly tell you, especially when you have this through line and you've seen so many different success, you can feel when things are not, working and succeeding, like this one was, and this one was, and this one was, and then you start to feel like, where's my success at? Where's my, and you become addicted to success, but then you have to step back and God has to humble you again. Because the reality of it is, what are you doing it for? Are you doing it for you? Are you doing it for, His glory? Or are you doing it for your glory? So, when we're talking about success, we have to really put it in a perspective. Did you set a goal? Did you attain the goal? Keep moving. Did my success is not your success. Your success is not my success. We have to understand when it comes to success, well, that's not successful. That's not, why is it not successful? How many people has it impacted? What's your measure? What's your gauge? When I look at the path that I've been on for the past several years, and I look at the impact that it's had on others, that's how I can really gauge it, because I set out to go make money, So money was the goal. And it's like, but the money's not coming, so it must not be successful. But no, along the way, I've helped, I've impacted, I've inspired, I'm like, okay, but I set out to go do this, but God has stopped me and shown me, okay, but here's the thing. You say you want to glorify me, right? So yes, God, I want to glorify you first and foremost. Okay, here's how it's got to happen then. You got to impact these people. You got to impact these people. These people, I need them to see me and you go do this thing, while you're, going to get this thing. I'm going to keep you. I'm going to keep you. I'm going to keep you. I'm going to hold you. While you're going to this thing that I birthed in you, I need these people here to be impacted. And it's like, oh, I never would have thought of that. He's like, I know you wouldn't have thought of that. That's why I had to think of it for you. You know what I'm saying? So, but when it comes to success, we have to, when this is a we have to situation, we have to stop holding one another to our ideology of what we consider to be successful based upon, what the world or culture looks like. You're only successful if you have $100 billion. No, here's the reality. How about you impact, 100 million people? 100 million people. How about you impact your family? How about you impact that one little child that grows up, to impact, billions? How about you, there's different levels to this. I look at my father's life. And I look at how his life was so successful because even, a year and a half later, he's still impacting after he's passed away. Just think about that. How many people do you know that are still positively impacting, educating, leading, teaching, guiding people, years after they passed away? Let's just be honest. This is a hard part about life. The vast majority of people will pass away, and that's when the level of their impact in this world will end. But there are those who, even after they're gone, that's legacy. Continues to impact those positively. Now, you can still impact people, negatively after you're gone, if you did enough messed up stuff. But to impact people positively, their lives positively, to have laid such a groundwork, to have, sown so much seed into people that even years and years and decades after you're gone, you're still sowing, you're still feeding into them. You're still guiding them. You're still leading them. Hey, if that's not success, I don't know what success is. But that's, each individual person. We should all, hope to reach our level of success in life at that level, just to be able to impact. Now, did my father die a rich man? Nah, not at all. 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 But he died rich in people. He died rich in love and adoration of those that he spent 87 years sowing into. Oh, yeah. He spent 87 years sowing into people. So today, so many talk about him with such esteem. There are more to talk about him with such esteem than those that don't. That's a life well lived. That's a life well lived. So only hope to be so successful in life. But we're talking about, measures of success. What is your measure of success? What did you intend to do that you accomplished? Well, guess what? You succeeded in that. We all have success. We all have measures of, the longer you keep living, the more successes you have. Now, whether you realize them or not, whether you count them or not, whether you're aware of them or not, that's why I've got to step back and say, okay, I've actually had a successful run at this and this and this and this and this. And we need to focus more on those successes and not the fear of the failures. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big, we got to stop fearing failure. But, the reality of it is failures are part of, succeeding. You can't have, great success without a great amount of failure. You just can't. You just can't. That's not how life works. It's not natural. The more you try, everything's not going to be a win. Everything's not absolute, but that's the thing. That's why, when I'm talking about, in business and everything, unfortunately, I deal with so many, and I've dealt with so many that are so terribly afraid to try that they don't even, they're so afraid of failure that they don't even, strive after success. Whatever success is for them, they want to measure by, they're doing like this, they're doing like that. Well, what is everybody else doing? What is everybody else doing? That ain't got nothing to do with you. They ain't got nothing to do with your success. Nothing whatsoever. Nothing whatsoever. What they're doing, what this woman's doing, what this man is doing, it's got nothing to do with your success. It's got nothing to do with my success. We have to start understanding and really count, just look back in your own life. Don't look at nobody else. What successes did you have? What are your successes? Regardless of how old you are, if you're old enough to be watching this, to comprehend even some of what I'm saying, you're old enough to have successes in your life. Stop and look at those successes and count them. Look at them. Look at them. We have to stop. We have to stop, demonizing what somebody else is doing because we don't feel like it's successful, because it's not what that one did, or it's not what that one did. It's not what, guess what? Guess what? They succeeded in getting this far. They succeeded in getting this far. They have a level of accomplishments. When I look at, what God has done with me, and over the past just, several years, not just the past, I could go back further, but just the past even, several years, it's amazing to me when I think about the successes. So when I look toward the future, I'm more confident. I'm more assured that the thing that I'm doing, the thing that I'm working toward is going to achieve exactly what it's meant to achieve, because I have real documented in my mind, even on paper but in my reality, not just not just how I wanted it, in my reality and others that I've come in contact with, in the reality of this worked, this worked, this worked, this worked, this worked, this worked, this worked. This worked. I sought to do this, and it happened, and it worked, and I achieved it, and I walked out, and that was good. That was good. And then you get a high, and you want to chase that high. Everything's not going to be set, but you got to. So you got to get. Look, the successes are far fewer. The great grand, dopamine, exhilarating, mind, emotional feeling, successes are few and far between sometimes, those particular highs, but they're daily successes. I got up, I woke up, I brushed my teeth, I made my bed, okay. Number of successes, count the successes in your day, and then weave enough days together, and then you'll have a through line showing, a lifetime of success. All right. Talk to you later. God bless.